Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Shots to the Dome podcast. I'm your host, Sean McDevitt, aka Fitness Shaman on the gram. And if you follow me on Instagram, you know I talk a lot about meditation. Shoot, if you listen to the podcast, you know I talk a lot about meditation. So much so that when I thought about doing an entire episode on how to meditate, basically why and how to meditate, I had to reach out to our podcast production team run by Kyle Rapp, asking Kyle, hey, am I crazy or have I never done an episode on meditation? And he hit me back and was like, I literally did a search because I was not sure as well. It doesn't look like you've done one, but you probably are confused because you talk about it so much. And I was like, yes, that's why I was curious if I'd ever done one. And since we were both agreeing that I had not done an episode on why and how to meditate, here we are. So you can consider this your meditation crash course, your meditation 101 class, if you will, for why I think it's beneficial to start a meditation practice and then the hows to successfully integrate that into your life without stressing yourself out and without adding a ton of time to your routine or day overall. Just as a brief disclaimer, meditation is just one sort of what I call morning routine modalities, because you've probably heard about meditation, yoga, breath work, cold plunge, all of those different ways, journaling to start your day. It's not that you have to do all of them all at once and spend 2 hours getting ready for your day, unless ... you have that capability and you want to. I have a ton of friends and I've had them on the podcast to share their morning routine who do have a morning routine of anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours. It helps them become the best version of themselves every day, and I support them in that. However, if you're listening, you may not have that much time in your day to dedicate to a morning routine. However, you'll find out that you can easily start a meditation routine in about as little as 5 to 10 minutes. We're going to get into how to do that. But meditation, like I was saying, is just one of those modalities. What I recommend for those people who don't want to do everything and don't have a lot of time in the morning, try something out and then pick your favorites. So try meditating for 2 weeks, see how you feel. Try journaling for a couple weeks, see how you feel, and then pick up the one that's your favorite. I just happened to kind of fall into meditating about a dozen years ago. I was going through my divorce with my ex-wife before meeting Dayla, and meditation was really helpful for me centering myself and really calming myself down. And yes, I am one of those people who can attest to the benefits of meditation. I am one of those people that you read about or hear on TV or in an Instagram video that's like, yes, meditation's for me. It's really helpful. Recommend it for others. So that's why I'm doing this podcast for anyone who's thought about meditating. If you have that little inkling idea in the back of your head that's like, hey, what about meditation? Like, that might be cool. Maybe I should try that out. Definitely check out this podcast and start your own meditation practice. Okay, before diving into the how-to of meditation, I wanted to give background into why I think you could find meditation to be a very great way to set yourself up for success every single day and notice some positives in your life that you may not notice now. I'm going to go into a few individuals who talk about meditation, and then I'm going to go into really the reason why we meditate at the end of the day, how it applies to our life, because believe it or not, having been a meditator for a dozen years, it took me about 11 of them to figure out why it was exactly I loved meditation as a morning routine tactic and as a part of my routine in my everyday. So the first person I'm going to talk about is Tim Ferriss. I'm a huge Tim Ferriss fan. If you don't know who that is, give him a quick Google. He wrote the book, The 4-Hour Workweek, and then a host of books after that, like The 4-Hour Body, 4-Hour Chef. It's basically like 4-hour anything. He was also an early investor in Uber. He wrote 2 other books, one called Tools of Titans, one called Tribe of Mentors, and they were compilations of his podcast, which I believe is still the #1 ranked business podcast in the country. I used to listen to his podcast religiously. I got a lot out of it. Definitely recommend trying him out if you haven't listened to his podcast. And it was honestly the genesis, or a reason for the genesis rather, of Shots to the Dome, because Tim Ferriss on his podcast interviews a ton of high achievers, people like Elon Musk, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Naval Ravikant, other people who have done amazing things. However, I felt like those people were almost too untouchable because he has like Elon Musk, richest man in the world, right? And it's like, how can I be one of those people? And so the genesis of Shots to the Dome was me wanting to have people on who had done amazingly great things, who seemed more approachable, or said another way, closer to where we are. Like, as I was listening to Tim Ferriss on my commute, sometimes I'd be like, wow, like I can tease out some things that I can apply in my own life, but this person that's on the show just seems like they are miles ahead of me, versus Shots to the Dome, having someone that maybe you can connect with on Instagram. They're going to message you back. Elon Musk, probably not going to message you back. He's just too busy. So anyway, Tim Ferriss compiled his podcast episodes into these two books, Tools of Titans and Tribe of Mentors. And one thing that he noticed that was consistent amongst 80% of the high achievers and high performers that he had on his podcast and in those books, 80% of them had a meditation practice. 80%, 80. Tim Ferriss himself is also a meditator. He vibes with transcendental meditation, or TM, which is a type of meditation. It's one where the person receives a mantra. It's actually, I think, like $20,000 to learn TM. Tim Ferriss hilariously talks about how he thinks, or why rather he thinks, one has to pay that amount. And he's like, to go to the class, you really want to skip it on like a Thursday night, but because you spend so much money on it, you'll go and you get this download of this meditation technique that is a 20-minute, 2 times a day meditation. Again, you're not going to have to do it that much to get the benefits of meditation, which I'll go into here in a sec. But that's Tim Ferriss's flavor of the week, or flavor of the year, rather, for his type of meditation, what he loves. But if we're looking at these high performers, high achievers, like those people I just listed, 80% of them meditate. So there must be something to it. So if that's not enough motivation for you to apply it in your own life, there are other people who have talked about meditation. Believe it or not, Kobe Bryant. Of course, I'm going to go to a Kobe Bryant quote on meditation if he has one. He started meditating because he realized that the game of basketball was becoming way more mental as he got older, and he wasn't relying so much on his physical skills and his physical abilities. He had to really hone in on his mentality and his mindset. And he found that meditation created this armor for the day. It allowed him to set the tone for the day. It was something that he could control in a very uncontrollable world, and it set him off in a very positive path for the rest of the day. Both Tim Ferriss and Kobe Bryant also talk about those days where they don't meditate, because I don't meditate sometimes either. We're not perfect. But they talk about how they noticed that missing in their life. When they didn't meditate, they noticed that the day just felt a little bit differently. I can attest to the same thing. So you have not only Tim Ferriss, but 80% of these literally hundreds of people that he's had on his podcast talk about meditating as a form of morning routine or a form of stress relief in their lives. And you also have Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, talking about it as well. I'm sure you can do a quick Google and find out more people who are into meditation. So those are a couple people, well, actually numerous amounts of people who talk about how meditating has impacted their lives. And if we're talking about the titans of industry, the people that we look up to, if they're meditating, it's probably something that we should do as well, right? Like, if one is looking at the keys to success, because success leaves clues. If you're looking for the blueprint of how to improve your life, there's 80% of these high achievers who are saying they meditate. Maybe it's something that you should look into a little bit more seriously. But Sean, you may ask, what am I actually getting out of meditation? I get it. People you look up to, like Tim Ferriss, Kobe Bryant, everybody else meditates, but why should I start a meditation practice? What benefit am I going to see from it? Great question, Shots to the Dome podcast listener. I really appreciate it, because it allows me to go into why we actually meditate. And like I said, it took me years, basically a decade, to figure this out for myself. And what helped me do that was a book that I read called the Bhagavad-Gita. Highly recommend this book if you're into personal development, if you're into personal growth, if you're into if you're into spirituality, rather, the Bhagavad-Gita. It's a thousands of years old Hindu text. It's very much, if you are of the Judeo-Christian background, it's very much a Jesus story. There's this guy, Krishna, who's kind of like Jesus in that he's God as man on earth. And he is talking to his disciple, Arjuna, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but he's talking to literally a disciple kind of about life. And the disciples asking him questions. They have this great conversation. That's basically the Bhagavad-Gita. But in the Gita, Krishna, the main character, the Jesus-like character, and this was written, again, maybe 5,000 years ago. And of course, it came down through verbal stories and then was put to writing, and then thus we have the book. But it was a story in the Hindu religion that was passed down through generations. The story itself takes place thousands of years before Christ, but again, a very similar story. In the Gita, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about why we meditate. And he said, basically the gist or the crux or the reason why we meditate is to better manage our emotions. And here's why. Here's how that happens. And we'll go into it as well. How one meditates is they recognize a thought, because if anyone's ever tried to meditate, me as well, the first time I sat down, even sometimes to this day, I'll sit down and be like, okay, don't think. And then there's thought hitting my head, right? What meditation teaches you to do is to simply recognize that thought and let it go and not let it hijack you down a path that you don't want to go down. So for instance, let's say I'm meditating this morning and the thought of doing this podcast pops into my head. I can either go, wow, I have that podcast. What time am I doing that? Did I let Kyle, our podcast production team, know? Have I done a podcast on that? And now all of a sudden I've spent 2 to 5 minutes thinking about this thing while I'm trying to meditate. And that's not really accomplishing the goal of meditation. Instead, the thought of, oh, I have this podcast today pops into my head. I can simply recognize it and be like, oh, that's cool. Thank you. And let it go. I analogize it like swiping an update or an alert or a ping away from your phone. We've all gotten that text or that email that we're like, hey, I don't have time for this, that Instagram alert, we don't have time for this. And you swipe it away and you don't click into it. That's kind of the same type of process when you are meditating with a thought. So when you have a thought, you just recognize it, let it go, get back to baseline. And I'll again go into how you can do that. That analogy of how to let a thought go before it hijacks you down this path you don't want to go down, that's an analogy for the emotions that come up in life. So when you're meditating and you have this practice over and over and over again of recognizing a thought and letting it go, that is an analog for the waking life when you're not meditating and an emotion comes up and you just recognize it and let it go. Because let's say you are talking with your partner, they say something, it maybe tweaks you a little bit, an emotion arises. You can either let it hijack you down a road that you might not want to go down, and all of a sudden you are 5 minutes into an argument and you have no idea why, or you go, oh my God, I had that emotion and now I'm 5 minutes into an argument, I don't want to be here. That's one option. Or you can recognize the emotion, take a second, take a beat to think about it, like, oh, this is interesting. Why is this emotion coming up? Kind of dissect it and be like, do I want to let it take me down this road? Or do I want to sit with it and go, you know what? My partner loves me. They probably weren't trying to tweak me. I'll just let this go. Or, oh, this is an interesting emotion. Hey, partner, when you said this, it kind of tweaked me a little bit. Is that what you meant? They're probably not going to say no. They're probably gonna be like, hey, I didn't mean to tweak you, partner. But that allows us to not get hijacked and not go down this road that may involve an argument or future hurt in broad terms. It's literally scientifically called the amygdala hijack. The amygdala is a part of your brain that has not yet gotten the operating system update. It is one of the older parts of your brain, and it kind of has to do with fight or flight. So when you feel an emotion and you can't, or we can't logically pick it apart or take that moment, take that beat, and you're hijacked down that road where you're in an argument or you're emotional, it's literally called an amygdala hijack. The emotion has hijacked your amygdala and taken you down this path that maybe logically, consciously, intentionally, you didn't want to go down. That's the gist of meditation. Meditation will help you recognize your emotion, let it go, recognize your emotion, process it, regulate it, and not do things that you don't want to do. That's the gist of meditation. It took me like a decade to figure that out. Spoiler alert, fun fact, hashtag Sean knows on the podcast today. That's why you want to meditate. That's the goal. Before I was able to put my finger on it and explain it the way that I did notice this in certain scenarios in my life. So before I became a coach and was working in corporate America, those big boardroom meetings, occasionally something would come up and kind of tweak me and I'd feel a type of way about it. After meditating for a little while, all of a sudden I was able to control that. And I was able to take that beat, take that moment and be like, wait a minute, do I want to get really tweaked about this? Do I want to get really mad about it? Or do I want to kind of let it go or comment on it? Right. Because if something tweaks you, like, please don't misunderstand me. The goal is to not just like, hey, I'm going to let everything go. Like, that would be great. Right. If we could all just let everything go and everything slide off our back, that's a little unreasonable. And there are times in life where I wouldn't want you to do that. Right. If that's not how you felt. But when we learn to watch our emotions, that's an option, or we can manage it in a much more sound, calm, and logical manner than we might in the past. Again, using that example of getting into an argument with your partner, they may say something that tweaks you, and now all of a sudden you are like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that, or like, oh, and you all of a sudden are in a huge fight. Or you've meditated, you have that moment to be like, hey, when you said this, it made me feel a certain way. Can you expand on that? Like, did you mean to do that? And all of a sudden your partner and you are having a more calm conversation. You're getting to the root of the problem without the emotion around it. Okay, so meditation sounds great, right? How do we go about starting this practice? What's really cool is that the science supports the consistency with which we meditate is more impactful than the quantity or the length of time that we meditate. What that means is if you meditate 2 minutes a day, but you do it consistently every single day, you're going to see the benefits of a meditation practice more so than the person who's meditating 30 minutes every other day. So again, if you're looking for a big bang for your buck, I'm a big fan of hacks, a big fan of things that are going to really benefit us on time. It's going to be a big adjustment, or it's going to be a small adjustment rather for a big gain. Meditation can be that, because you can just do it for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you can work your way up to that. Do it consistently every single day, and you're going to get more benefit out of it than the person who's doing 20 minutes twice a day, but they're only doing it 3 times a week. Does that make sense? That's another reason why I'm a huge fan of meditation. More bang for your buck. So now that we have talked about it doesn't take eons to learn how to meditate, how do we actually go about doing that and doing that effectively? I have tried different meditation modalities over my dozen or so years of meditating, and I've come up with a few different ideas. I'm going to get into sort of the basics and things to remember, and then different things that you can do. And then I'll go into what my practice is specifically, because I think it's very transportable and very easy to do. Anyone can do it. You can do it anywhere. So the 3 things that we want to remember is to sit up straight. So really focusing on our posture. The reason behind that is probably the same reason that your mom told you to eat with yourself standing up straight, is to create that clear path in your body. You don't want to be hunched over. You don't want your organs crunched. You want to be standing up straight. You want to be sitting up straight. You want to really focus on your posture. To help do this, I have a back support, or you can do it against a wall. You can do it against a bed. You can do it against a back support, but it doesn't need to be uncomfortable is my point, but really focusing on your posture. The second thing is to focus on your breath. And in a perfect world, you're breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth. Yes, there's a ton of allergens here in Texas, and there are times when I have allergies and I have to just breathe through my nose. That's totally fine. There are times when I sit in a chair as well and not use a back support. So second thing you want to focus on is your breath. Why, you may ask, do we focus on the breath? The reason is because the breath you can take with you. You can take the breath with you anywhere, and that can help you recenter yourself. How many times has someone said, hey, take a breath, or remember to breathe? That's what they're kind of getting at. Because there are some people, it's funny because I have a candle lit right now. There are some people who meditate staring at a candle's flame, staring at the flame of a candle, and that's how they meditate. Or they focus on a specific spot, or they have something that they look at, right? Going back to what I said about the transcendental meditation, they have a mantra because you can take that mantra with you. So the reason why I recommend the breath is because you can take the breath with you. There's also some more benefits that I'll go into here in a moment. So first one is posture. Second one is breath, breathing through the nose, out through the mouth. And the third one is to be kind to yourself. So it's going to be challenging when you first sit down. I promise you're going to have a bajillion thoughts in your head. Be kind to yourself, that you're not doing it wrong or incorrectly. And when you do have a thought, just let it go. Be kind to yourself. That's the goal. The goal is to not beat yourself up. It's funny because my brother-in-law the other day told me he met someone who had meditated straight for like 2 or 3 years, and he was very impressed. And I responded saying that my first question to this individual would be, I hope it didn't stress you out, because meditation is not supposed to stress us out. It's supposed to add value to our life and provide some stress relief. So those are the 3 main things to focus on: posture, your breath, and being kind to yourself when you let those thoughts go. Also, one other thing about the breath, it can be very helpful in putting us into a parasympathetic state, or a calm down state. So you can think of the sympathetic state as stressed out, fight or flight, not really being able to think, not clear-headed. And the parasympathetic is you're calm, you're of sound mind, you're reasoned, you're logical, you can think. When we are working out, it gets us into a very sympathetic state. When we're warming down, taking it easy, it gets us into a parasympathetic state. That parasympathetic state is the evolved state of a human, right? The evolved out of just the fight or flight response. There are myriad ways to meditate. If you are a first-time meditator, I would recommend diving into some guided meditations. What's awesome is there are a ton of guided meditations online. You can go into Spotify, search for guided meditations. You can also message me. I have a great 10-minute, I believe, meditation from Sam Harris. who I really enjoy. If you go on YouTube and just type in 5-minute meditation, 5-minute guided meditation, rather 10-minute guided meditation, you're going to find a ton of guided meditations. And those can be helpful for first-time meditators because you're literally being guided through it, and it can help us get out of our heads. It's also an interesting conversation of where these thoughts are coming from, just if I can get a little woo-woo for a minute, because the first time I started meditating, I'd sit down and be like, all right, don't think, and I have that conscious thought of don't think. And then it's like thought hitting my head. And eventually I'm like, where are these thoughts coming from? Like, I'm telling myself to chill the F out and calm down and not think, but yet there's all these thoughts like hitting my head. It's a story conversation for another time. Another reason why I love meditation. But you eventually get to the point where you can calm that down. A way to do that, because I think people sometimes misrepresent meditation as not thinking or trying not to think. That's not exactly the core of meditation. Yes, it involves not thinking so much. However, it's really being in the moment, and it can help us practice being in the moment, slowing things down, etc. So how you can do that instead of racking your brain against don't think, is focusing on how the air is filling up your lungs, right? Because we were just talking about a moment ago that you can take the breath with you, and it can be a very valuable tool. So when you're breathing, you can focus on how your chest is filling with air. You can focus on breathing into your abdomen. You can focus on breathing into different sides of your abdomen. I don't know if you're aware that you can do that, but you can actually breathe into different parts of your torso. You can breathe into different parts of your back. You can breathe into your abdomen. You can breathe into your chest. You can breathe into different parts of your chest. Try that out, because when you are focused on your breathing and focused on the breath, you're in the moment. All you're doing is meditating, and all you're doing is focusing on that. And you're probably not going to be thinking too much. So that's, again, why we take the breath with us. And that's something that you can focus on to remain in the moment. I'll oftentimes meditate with a ceiling fan and feel the air on my skin and my head. And that's another way to be in the moment, is just really pay attention to that. If you want to meditate without a guided meditation, if you want to meditate without any sound, which I'll go into here in a moment, recommend cracking a window. If you can pay attention to what's going on outside, like birds chirping or cars going by or any other sound that's outside, it's going to get you out of your head. Again, you're in the moment. That was a big help for me when I first started meditating. So that's another hack, is just crack a window and pay attention to listening for things outside. If you ever go on a vacation, if you're in a tropical place, meditate outside. It's amazing to do it, and it'll chill you out. I promise. I'm a huge fan of that. Other meditation modalities could be solfeggio frequencies or binaural beats. This is sounds, frequency, vibrations that you can listen to while you are meditating. Those can sometimes be fun. I've messed around with that in addition to guided meditations. You can also listen to nature sounds. You can listen to playlists that have meditation specific sounds. That's what I do. So my personal practice is I have a meditation pad, and yes, this has evolved over time, but I have a really comfy, it was from, oh man, what's that company? Gaia. That's the company. It was from Gaia. I got this really nice pad. It's maybe like 3 feet in length, maybe like 1.5 feet in width. And I sit on that bad boy, and it's amazing. And I sit up against a bed because that's the back support. I've done this in hotels too, where I'll just put down a hotel pillow and lean up against the bed. Works great. I also have my AirPods with me. And again, like I said, this is very transportable. So anywhere you are in the world, if you have a pillow to sit on and you have some AirPods in your phone, you're probably going to have all 3 with you. You can meditate anywhere in the world. So I put these AirPods in. I'll link the Spotify playlist that I listen to in the show notes. I'll list a couple that I listen to. One is a binaural beats focused one. The other one is a nature sounds focused one. Most of the time I listen to nature sounds. And then I will set a timer on my phone for however long I want to meditate. And that's the benefit of a meditation practice, is I try to target between 8 and 10 minutes regularly. But if I don't have a lot of time, guess what? I adjust that to 5 minutes, to 6 minutes, to 3 minutes, whatever I need for the day. So I will throw the AirPods in, sit down on my pad, set the timer, turn on the Spotify playlist, and then I just zone out. And I focus on my breath. I focus on the music. I focus on how my body feels. And I just focus on being in the moment. And anytime a thought arises, I just recognize it and let it go. That is personally how I enjoy meditating. There are also other ways to meditate, like walking meditation. You can go down amazing Google rabbit holes and find out more meditation modalities, but that is the easiest, in my opinion, to meditate. Having your AirPods or just doing it without it. You've probably seen me on Instagram post sometimes the time lapse of my meditation. I'm doing that without AirPods because I can't LOL, film myself and wear the AirPods at the same time, but you can do it without anything and just listen to your surroundings, listen to what's going on in the room. I think that just about does it. Last thing I'll mention, I think this will be the last thing, is that it takes about 10 to 14 days to notice the benefits of meditation. So I really encourage you, if you're a first-time meditator, to stick with it. And when you have that feeling of, oh my God, this is working or something is happening, then really stick with it. And that's more motivation, more inspiration to maintain a meditation practice. The thing about meditation, like you're not going to, see anything crazy. You're not going to feel anything crazy, but you may just find this peace amid yourself that I think we're lacking in our interconnected ADHD world. That's another reason potentially to meditate, is the stress plus rest equals growth equation that you've probably heard me talk about on the show before, and an equation that I truly believe holds in life. If you want to read more about this, Peak Performance by Stolberg and Magnus. Peak Performance talks about stress plus rest equals growth being an equation that works for all of life. If you're listening to this, you're probably a big fan of working out. When you are in the gym, what are you doing? You're stressing your muscles, right? You're tearing muscle fibers. You're literally stressing them out. You go home, you rest, you take a rest day. What do? They grow. So in a very small microcosm, that's proof of stress plus rest equals growth. So if we take that as a fact, we need to apply it to other aspects of life. Someone who does this intentionally is Warren Buffett, the investor. If you're unfamiliar with Warren Buffett, please give him a Google. He's worth billions of dollars. And he said that he has a meditation chair, or a thinking chair, quote unquote, that he spends 10 minutes in every day, where he says he doesn't do anything. He just sits there. He'll write down ideas that come to him, but he doesn't broadcast, is his point. Because he says, as a business leader, as an investor, as someone who runs myriad companies, he is broadcasting all day. And that's a lot for his brain to do. So understanding the concept of stress plus rest equals growth, he has to rest his brain for a little bit every day. So he rests it for 10 minutes and then he moves on with his life. But that could be another motivator for meditating, because if you're listening to this, you probably use your brain a ton every single day. You're probably broadcasting a ton every single day. So it would be nice to just get some chill out time. That's honestly when I don't want to meditate. What gets me to do it sometimes is, hey, this is 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes out of my day where I don't think, and I just get to chill out and vibe out. And that will help me with that equation of stress plus rest equals growth. That will help my brain grow. Funny enough, when one meditates over time, I think it takes about 10 years, there's part of your brain, part of the gray matter, that actually grows an extra fold. So you can actually grow parts of your brain when you are an avid meditator. I think that's super cool. And you continue to notice the benefits. With that, I think that concludes our episode on meditation. I could probably go on and on and on about this topic. If you are interested in learning more, please feel free to hit me up. I would love to talk about this. You can always DM me at Fitness Shaman. If this podcast inspired you, if you started meditating and you love it, I would love if you shared this podcast. Please tag me. I'd love to shout you out as well. And I truly believe that meditation will help so many. It'll help us. It'll help future generations. And I believe it's been a really fun practice for me. If you want to learn more about meditation, just give it a Google. There's a ton of stuff out there. There's a ton of books. What I would recommend for anyone wanting to start a practice is to make it fun, make it easy, because meditation, yes, can be challenging and can be hard, but it doesn't have to be. And you can make it a very easy and fun and fulfilling life practice. So with that, I'm going to sign off. As always, would really appreciate if you rate and review the podcast. Give it a 5-star review. If you have some time, just leave a couple notes in a review and a comment, like love this episode or love the meditation episode. Leave a meditation emoji. I would love that. Shoot, if you share this on Instagram, just pop a meditation emoji. That would be cool. Really appreciate that. And appreciate you listening. We hit a huge milestone for me personally. Wrote down that I wanted to have 5,000 downloads per month. We hit that in March, and it looks like we're going to hit that again in April. And that's because you are helping me do that. I really appreciate you not only listening, but sharing the episode when you find it valuable. And as always, this has been another episode of Shots to the Dome.